Welcome to EnigmaCast, everybody. We got a special treat tonight. I have managed to work the internet like you don't know, call in favors, work with some prayers, do what I got to do, but I finally landed me. Chris and Ariel, the girls from the lovely ladies from the Elephant in the Room and the podcast. So right now my audience is giving you guys serious applause, serious applause, serious applause. Ladies, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. And please, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into this hot topic that we're going to talk to tonight.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. You can start us off.
Oh, dear. We always do this to each other. We're always bouncing back and forth who goes first. Okay. A little bit about myself. So I am Chris. I am living in the beautiful state of Arizona now as of just over a year ago, last week, actually. Made a big move from San Diego. So I spent most of the last 15 years or so in San Diego, Southern California. I have a family of four adult children. I have my oldest stepson and then 3 children that my husband and I share. And I am a former healthcare executive or administrator. I did that. I worked my way up through healthcare over the years and served in healthcare for about 33 years and took a basic nosedive really right after COVID and prior to my sightings. They actually coincided and just felt completely burnt out of my field and just had a lot of things going on and left my field. And then all of these experiences started happening to me. And I'm a veteran as well. So I served in the Navy as a hospital corpsman.
Navy guy.
Many years ago, a long time ago.
I was in the Navy too.
All right, awesome. Yep. Oh, cool. Good to know. So you know what that's like. And, I'm fortunate and unfortunate as a veteran, but I do have disabilities. So right now that's kind of...
What? Yeah. What?
A disability.
No, I know that's better than what you said.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get it.
What? First thing to go is our hearing. Yeah. So.
It's like
Ariel's
right over my head.
Better nerd, Navy nerds. Go ahead. All right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Everybody's deaf in my life, so and the military sounds do not help the situation.
Sure. All right, Chris.
Yeah. So no. Yeah.
Amazing. No, please keep going. If you have more.
Oh, no. Yeah. So that's basically my background. I mean, that's, and then once I started getting into this topic, I don't consider myself a researcher by any means. I feel like I'm a content creator. I'm interested in the topic. I'm interested in understanding the topic. I would love to be a researcher one day. I think into specifically the psychological effects of the phenomenon on people. I think that is a critical area of study that we need. But now I consider myself just a, enthusiast who has a passion for the topic.
Okay. Well, all right.
Yeah.
I got follow-up questions, but let's bring in Ariel. Ariel, spill it.
Yeah.
Spill the tea, Ariel. Come on.
Yes. So I am 34 years old and I am married. I have 2 beautiful girls, ages 10, or actually she just turned 11 on Thursday. I've gotta start getting used to that.
Right.
You're great.
11, and my second is she'll be 6 in August. I am a former teacher. I have my teaching degree. I taught kindergarten for a year and I have stayed home with my children since. So that's been a lot of fun. And yes, I'm very blessed and very lucky to have been able to stay home with them. And I would say I've just always had a passion for sci-fi, for anything space related, astronomy. It's just always been an interest to me. And I would say about 5 years ago, I really started just kind of diving into the topic, listening to podcasts. And I've always loved to write. And so I've written things off and on. I've had a few things published and not like major like publications, but just in like internet journals and things like that. And I just decided I'm going to just write what's on my mind. And this was about 2 years ago. I wrote just a Medium article and just threw it up on Medium. And I don't know if you know who Lou Elizondo is, but he is a bigwig in the UFO community. If you're at all into UFOs, you know who Lou Elizondo is. And so he actually ended up reading my article and retweeting it. And it kind of just blew up from there of people just asking me questions, and I just started posting and things just kind of started spiraling. And yeah, that's kind of the origin story.
All right. So let me rewind this for everybody. We got Chris, known as the shark in the industry, closing $1 million deals, says, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going after this. I'm going after the UFOs. And I got Ariel over here training the next generations of geniuses, and they're part-time writing viral posts about UFO phenomenon on the internet. You guys are perfect for my podcast. You know, so you're perfect for it, right? So I don't bring losers on here, right? You know what I'm saying? The only loser is this guy right here, right? I don't bring them on, right? I elevate myself by my company. All right, that's great. So that is awesome right there. That is awesome. That is so good. That is really awesome. So let me explain to my listeners how I came across these two diamonds is that I have a habit of not sleeping, right? And it is very, very annoying. And then sometimes when I'll wake up at 3:00 in the morning, I'll say some prayers because, you know, that's the devil poking me, right? So I'll say some prayers and I get on my phone and I just start going through it. And I actually came across Ariel coming back from I want to get this straight. She said, I just finished my first ever UFO conference. And what struck me was I laughed because it was in Arkansas, right? Is that where you were at, right? And I was like, Arkansas?
Yeah.
I was like, I've been sleeping on Arkansas, man. So I said, you know what? I just started firing it off. I'm like, hey, come on my podcast. That's literally what I said, man. That's the story, y'all. So,
that's awesome.
Chris, were you there? Were you in Arkansas too?
No, I wasn't. That I didn't make it to Arkansas. That was Ariel's first trip, and I'm glad she got to go.
So, Chris, you're in Arizona. Ariel, are you in Arkansas, or did you make a trip to Arkansas?
I made a trip to Arkansas. Okay. I'm from Nebraska.
Okay. All right. All right. So there you go. So that's how we connected. Well, that's how I started begging you guys to come on the show. But it's not the most craziest story I've got for people to come on the show. But so I actually have a lot of people lined up, right? And and I've actually came to realize that they don't revolve around me. And so other people have schedules. So when I'm like, hey, come on my show, when? I'm like, hey, how about Tuesday? Yeah, I'm booked till like July. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, it's here on the calendar then. Right? So that is awesome. I'm so glad that you guys are here to talk about this. This is actually something that I stumbled on to success by being a jerk, to be honest with you, because during COVID I got bored. I've been in this UFO game, and I came to the epiphany like 2 days ago. I've never felt normal, right? And if people who've known me for a long time was like, yeah, of course, but like on your insides, I've been all around this planet. I was in the Navy for 10 years. I was in Southeast Asia for 7 of those years. I've been to more countries than I've been to states, and I have never felt at home anywhere. And I tell people this all the time, and they ask me these questions like, "What do you mean you don't feel at home, right?" And I saw you both nodding your head, man. Like during COVID, when we were locked down and we were in our houses, I said, you know what? I go online and I read some stuff, and I'm like, this is a lie. So I made a meme about how the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids, right? And so I put that up. I made an Instagram account, right? And the term Professor Augustus was just a name I picked, right? I just picked that name, right? Professor Augustus. I told everybody that I'm Indiana Jones' bastard son, right? That's what I was telling everybody for the longest time. And I put that up there. And literally, I had like 7 followers. And I posted it up. And like all 7 followers were people that were related to me. It's like no one was there. I put my phone down. I woke up the next morning. That thing had it had 85,000 views, and it had I had 1,100 followers. If you go to my Instagram profile, I pinned it. I'm about to break 200,000 views, right?
Wow.
And literally, I was like, all right. And so I was like, you know what? I just started making these things, and that's how it led to me. And they were so bad in the beginning. The one that got a lot of views were good, but my first ones were so bad. And people were like, yo, man, take them down. I'm like, nah, man, I want to see people to see the progression, right? Like, they were you guys can relate, right? The first time,
Yeah.
So it was so terrible, right? So anyways, and like I said, and then people were like, hey, go on YouTube. And I'm like, okay. And I went on YouTube, and then 1,000 followers, and I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden I started getting people just started sending emails. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So it's cool. Yep. I enjoy that part, right? I really do. So anyways, that's how this channel came together, and I'm sure we're going to have much more of these in the future, because I'm going to charm y'all. You understand? Y'all going to be back on my show, right? I'm saying, I feel it right now, right? So
absolutely. I love this.
Yeah. But anyways, I got some questions, some hot questions for you, right? So I call them my channel helpers, right? Is the people that are too shy to say something in the comments, so they email me or they send me something, right? So I got 2 good questions, right, for you guys. That kind of like a little poll that we did, right, for each of you. And the first one is, what are the most compelling pieces of evidence or encounters that you 2 have came across in your research for UFOs? And when it says UFO, anything in the field. What they do. What are the 2 most what's the most compelling thing that's ever got a hold of you guys?
I mean, that's a tough one, because when you look, there's just not a lot of hard evidence. And so when you're looking at UFOs, you're really going by eyewitness testimony, and you're going with the volume of eyewitness testimony of people in the same area seeing either the same or very similar things. And, cases like the Phoenix Lights, that is very compelling, because there were a lot of people who saw something very anomalous that night. And so I think it's cases like those that you can't just dismiss it. You can't say, oh, that was nothing. There's too many people that saw something, and those are the cases that I really, when I'm having conversations with people, those are the cases that I sort of point to. I enjoy all the different cases. I enjoy, the really kind of weird cases where, even somebody is going, oh, I went aboard an alien craft and the alien made me pancakes. I just think it's all really hilarious and fun and interesting. Right. There's actually a case like that. I don't know if you've ever heard that case, but there is a case where, someone claimed that they went aboard a craft and the alien made him pancakes. And it's, I enjoy it all. But like I said, the really compelling cases are the ones where there was just a lot of eyewitness testimony.
Yeah. Chris?
For me, I will say the first case that I'll say that was compelling for me was the Travis Walton case. Mm-hmm. And really the reason behind that is because before I knew about the case itself, my father lived in Arizona in the White Mountains, and he had a neighbor who was a gentleman who was one of the parties in the case with Travis Walton. So he was one of the accused, essentially. And my dad described his behavior hyper vigilant, would not go into the woods. They lived in White Mountains, which is the woods, but he wouldn't cross the line of the fenced yard, things of that nature. And so he was clearly traumatized by his experience. And then later on, he opened up and talked more about some of those things. So that was my initial first case I heard about that was compelling. And then the second case I will say that is probably the most compelling, and I'm going to say all this outside of my own experiences, which I don't think are like that compelling to the world, but obviously to myself, like they are compelling. But the second case would be the Ariel School case, and I just think that one is probably one of the most compelling cases because of the amount of children that saw the craft and saw the beings and their description of it and their young age and the documentation.
That was in Africa, right?
That was in Africa and Zimbabwe.
Kids, right?
Yeah.
Zimbabwe. Right. No.
Yeah.
So 3 things on that. Those kids' crayon drawings, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen that. They're not thinking that up. What you can do. So this is a thing that I've run into people like. I'm not a humble guy, right? I try to be humble, right? But I'm not a humble guy, right? And when I have conversations with people, if I just say, hey, look, man, can we just admit something happened, right?
Right.
When they're like, no, nothing happened. Okay, well then we can't talk, because if something happened, we can talk about where they came from, what they were, what they wanted all day long. But if you're not willing to at least say to me that, okay, yeah, those kids saw something happened, right? And say that that's weird or that's out of place, then you can't, then you can't have a conversation with that, because their mind's already closed, right? And look, I don't know about you guys, but like, for years, I'm talking 20, 30 plus years, 20 years, I took massive ridicule saying that aliens were real. And those people now, they don't talk to me anymore, right? Because now, like, their precious government says they're real. And then, like, I'm like, right? So they don't want to talk anymore, right? So they don't talk to me anymore. And also, too, the Travis Walton case, I think, was the first UFO movie I ever saw. And it scared the you-know-what out of me, right? Like, the documentary. Like, I was like, that was crazy, right? And then for on your end, Ariel, too, I was just had a conversation about those Phoenix lights. And you know the number one thing that those people sleep on about that event? That craft was massive. I'm talking about it was not even close to comprehend what you think, like saying it's like a football field. It was way bigger than that. And a lot of people saw it. A lot of people saw it, right? So yeah, that's awesome right there. Cool, great. All right, that's question number 2. I got one more for y'all. All right, I got y'all for like 45 more minutes now. I got you. All right. So here's another thing too. And so I'll tell you real quick. You know which one? Like, I've seen things, right? I grew up in Upper East Tennessee along the Appalachian Mountains. I've seen weird stuff. Like, and we'll talk off camera too. I've seen some weird things, right? But something. You ever seen did you see the Jellyfish UAP video that was going around? That freaked me out. That totally freaked me out, man. Actually, my buddy Scott is Mysterious Planet. I highly recommend. I'll give you guys all the contact. I highly recommend you pull him on your podcast. He is like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the phenomenon. I was in the military, and so were you, Chris. And that thing going across the base, when we talked about it, I know what it was tracking. That was a Sea Whiz cannon that was tracking it. And that thing can shoot a Pepsi can out of the sky doing Mach 4, no problem, right? And the fact that it could not lock onto that
object
that no one could see, right, over an active military base, combat ready, that freaked me out, man. And the weird thing that I told Scott about is like, what did he want? Like, we were like totally on his pay no mind list, just like just cruising across. Like going to the grocery store, I guess, man. Going to the ocean. I don't know what he was doing, right? So that was crazy. Yeah, that freaked me out, man. So it's a pretty good podcast on there. We talked about it in detail and we break it down, but that was a weird one, right? Okay.
Yeah, that one is, I have to say, I tell Ariel, I have my own jellyfish story. Yeah. It's not quite the shape of the jellyfish, but I had a sighting after a San Diego air show. So I've also heard since then that there's lots of sightings during or after air shows. But it was an object that looks similar, had like more of a square top, and then it had like, it looked like strings almost hanging down. Almost like a strange hot air balloon, but just gray. And Anyways, just the way the things hung down, and it floated across the sky, you know, against the wind in a very transverse manner, not changing elevation as it went. And we got it on film. I mean, I have it.
Yeah.
And it looked, you can kind of guess the distance because I know where the airfield or the airfield that was over. But then, so it looked kind of big because I got it kind of capture, you know, a decent size on my camera. Next thing you know, I'm maybe 20 minutes later, we're standing there and we turn around and we look and it's right there next to us, and it's going, and I have that on camera as well.
Wow.
It's going next to us. So before it was going like, you know, west to east, and then now it's coming north to south, right next to us.
Wow.
You know, it's just like not making noise. It's floating. It's, you know, it kind of looked like, yeah.
Did it look like a craft, or did it look biological?
No, more like, I would say more like a craft. It didn't look biological. It looked like a square box almost with like things hanging and like a payload almost, but you knew it wasn't it wasn't behaving like balloons or like somebody jumping out of an aircraft or, you know, something like that, because it was after the air show. So, you know, you kind of wonder, like, okay, is this something involved with the air show? There's no way. It was right next to him.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That is crazy.
Crazy stories.
Yeah.
Crazy stories.
Okay. So here's the second question, and then we'll free flow, right? So I do better free flowing, but these guys like ask them this, right? And by the way, you guys are unicorns, you know that. So the
unicorn?
Yeah. So my other friends that are in Australia and New Zealand, the Cryptid Women's Society, they're great. I don't know if you follow them or not. They would be a good host on the show as well. But they're into this. Well, they're a female duo too, right? So now I got all these nerds like ask them. You guys are like ask them. Pretty girls they're pretty too. So good, attractive women in the field, like all these nerds like ask them this. I'm like, all right, I'll ask them. This is it, man. So.
Oh gosh, here we
go.
It's
a total nerd question though. It's like so. How do you see the field of UFO studies evolving in the next few years, especially with recent disclosures and increased public interest? That's their zinger. What do you guys think? How do you see this unfolding?
Well, it's a great question. I love nerdy questions, and I truly go back and forth, because there are days where I'm thinking, okay, we are advancing, we have momentum. You know, the government is talking about this. Congressmen are asking questions. They're pressing for hearings. Things have to, you know, there has to be an end. Like there has to be a stopping point where the world sort of realizes, you know, but then I have days where it's like, well, this has been going on since the 40s, and there have been, you know, government officials and, you know, very authoritative political people talking about this since the 40s, 50s, 60s, and look where we are. We're still not there yet. Mm-hmm. So then I kind of wonder, I don't know, are we ever going to get there? Is there a there? Right. You know, and I start getting all philosophical and existential. What are we doing? You know, all of that. So that's not probably the best answer, but it kind of varies day to day.
No, that's a great answer. And I'll tell you why when we get Chris's input. That's a really good answer. And I'll tell you why. Chris?
Excuse me. I think what I see coming is I don't know if I'll call it an organic movement from citizens and from even individuals with financial means. I see a shift. I think I see that the future is going to be these individuals investing their money in startups and different types of areas surrounding this topic. And there's going to be more interest from the people with power, because the people with power are the people with money. Mm-hmm. And like that, I think the SALT conference is an example. I mean, that's the second year in a row, right, that they've done that. And, you know, I'm part of the Future Folklore Incubator, which is like a founders incubator. And, you know, there's just people working behind the scenes to advance the topic forward. And I mean, obviously they have financial interest for a reason. There's technology, and there's, all kinds of things that can come out of this. And I think there's things that can come out of this for our future. Yeah. I mean, I think that we have the potential to learn things that will help assist humanity.
Yes.
I think that we've been hidden information because of for whatever reason, and we've lost
100 years
advantage.
Yes.
Yeah, we've lost an advantage because of that. And I think it's really going to be more the scientists and the private citizens pushing for it. Yes. I don't really see the government.
I don't mean to interrupt, Chris, but also, could you also talk about the influx of experiencers and abductees that are starting to come forward too? Because I think that's also going to drive what happens, because at some point we can't ignore what, and it's been so stigmatized, and contactees and abductees have not wanted to talk about it. And now it's becoming less and less stigmatized, and people are coming forward. And I think that's going to drive things in a certain direction as well.
No, I totally agree. And I can give you guys some very valid points to back up what's happening. If we're living in the world, the way it used to be is dying, and an animal is the most dangerous as it's dying. And when you see I call them fossils, when you see these despicable people, these fossils, right? Eventually time will own us all, right? And so these people, they're in their 90s, they're still in power, they're dying. I got shadow banned on TikTok last week. I made a post where all I did was repost the Vatican saying that they're rewriting their things, right? And then TikTok hit me up and said that's misinformation, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, it's off their site, right? And I appealed it, they shut it down, right? And then the Pope went out the next day, and he was wearing green. And I don't know if you saw it, but he was wearing the Nazca symbols on his little thing down there.
And I saw somebody pointed it out. Was it you? Maybe I saw it on your channel.
No, because I was banned out. So like I focus more on Instagram than I do TikTok, right? So I was working on some other projects, and I didn't throw it up there, but I saw that. So what they're doing is, and also they're terrified of what you guys were. The term they use is called, what you guys said, they don't call it organic, they call it a catastrophic disclosure, right? Where everything gets dumped out all at once. And these people have been lying to us since 1920, or maybe further back. Bob Lazar said when he was working on his projects, those were Greek hieroglyphics were in those craft he was working on, right? And he said two of them, or one of them for sure, was an archaeological discovery.
Yeah.
And they've been holding that technology back from us. That I forget who it was. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he said that we're actually supposed to be 100 years more advanced than we are at technology. That's why this boom in technology seems like, oh my God, we did this in a year. No, man, that was 60 years ago. They're letting that out quicker, so that it just seems like, oh, look how smart we are. Look how smart we are. No, man, that's old stuff, right? And so, and also to pit on your point there, Ariel, the shaming is done. It doesn't affect anybody anymore. Back in I've said this before, right? I was naval intelligence for 9 years, and I've said this for a long time. The National Enquirer is and always has been a psyop, a CIA misinformation psyop, right? And it was funny. I don't know if you knew, about 3 or 4 years ago, the meme was going where the National Enquirer all of a sudden started telling the truth. I don't know if you guys saw that, like some of the biggest things that were happening. Like, this is the stuff that you would see in the grocery line, right? It was a pretty good meme, right?
Reality.
Yeah. So I think what you, exactly how Ariel was describing it, you have these days where you go back and forth. It's over. It's done. It's not going to go back in the box. It's not, right? And it's not. And as things progress and get moving forward, the younger generation, like ourselves, when we come into power, we're more open to this, right? Like, no, it's like this is more open to it. This is not something to fear. This is something that we need to be aware of. And I think that'll be I actually feel pretty positive about 2024. I do. Some weird stuff happened to me like right after the eclipse. So I made a post about it that I was like, man, something changed in me. I don't know. Did you guys? I was actually disappointed that a portal didn't open up and Jesus come through, but I was like, at the same time, man, something happened to me on it. But so anyway.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
No, I think you're exactly right, and I think it's hard for Ariel and myself because we are newbies to the topic, and we didn't experience that shift for people who have been waiting for 40, 50 years, their whole life. Yeah, when every time we talk to them, Ariel, right? They do say they see a shift. They see a shift. So it's just hard for us to see it as newbies.
Oh, so you missed that you missed out on the hate and the ridicule and how
we did.
It was good times.
Sorry.
They were good times.
I tell everyone we're so, we may be unicorns, but we're lucky unicorns.
Yeah, man.
Because
those were great times.
We avoided all of that, and I feel really blessed that, and I feel like we're walking on the shoulders of giants who came before us, who have suffered horrendously under the ridicule and stigma. And that's like something I am passionate about. Like I may not have to deal with that, but I see the effects of people who have.
And so, so the thing that I see dying down now, right, is that one of the reasons why the shift happened is I recently was exposed maybe 2 or 3 years ago to the book of Enoch. I don't know if you guys ever read that book before, right? Actually, this is a book I highly recommend. So it's the complete 54 book apocrypha. It's every book that was taken out of the Bible during the Council of Messina, right? And Enoch was in there. And so
I'm aware of some of what's in there. I've never read it, but I'm definitely aware of the content.
So a quick little sidebar here. Have you ever heard of the tablets? I forget what's called. Billy Carson talks to them a lot. The Mesopotamian tablets. They talk about the
first tablets, right?
It's exactly it. So in the book of Enoch, it tells a story of these watcher angels that come down because they lust over our women, right? And that's a reoccurring theme in the UFO field too, and in the cryptid field. They always go after the women. I don't know if you guys have came across that or not, but it's always the women, right? Yes, men get taken and men have the abduction stories, but it's very rare for a man to come back marked up. These women always come back with scars, something in their belly button, something in their necks. The Kelly Cahill story out of Australia is a great story that the Cryptid Women's Society told me about. The Betty and Barney Hill story out of Buffalo came back. But it tells a story about these 200 angels that come down, find our women attractive, they mate with them, and they breed the Nephilim, right? The Mesopotamian tablets tell the exact same story. It's the same story, except they have receipts. It's Enki and Enlil. They call them the Anunnaki, right? It's the exact same two stories. And that story is why the flood happened. And so, and Enoch is not a nobody. He's a direct descendant from Adam, right? He's Methuselah's father, who is Noah's grandfather, right? Like, he is a somebody, right? And they snatched it out of there. And if you ever read the book of Genesis in the Bible, which I'm sure you guys have, the book of Enoch makes the book of Genesis make sense. It fills in the gaps, right? And so I didn't have that back in the day, right? So all I had was the Old Testament and the New Testament, and then you had you had story accounts, people saying, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And I'm like, "Look, the Bible talks about giants. Literally, it talks about giants, right?" Well, where'd they come from?
Sons of God and the daughter of man, right?
Yeah. So where'd they come from? Well, the Bible says these things called the Nephilim, or these things called, the Watchers, right? But it all makes sense. And so all that information has came out, man, and all that information is gone forward, and it just all ties our world here. And what used to baffle me is that I knew people that didn't think the earth flooded. like I knew people that literally would think, what are you talking about? A great flood came and took the whole planet out. And I'm like, yeah. Where does it say that? In the Bible. Oh, you still read that? And I'm like, yeah.
Well, you can also read like several other creation myths, and they have the same flood story and the flood account, and you nailed it.
Not the only account. Graham Hancock, he has a whole series on Netflix, and I don't even think that he is a person of faith who has put much stock in the Bible, but he's done the archaeology, and there definitely was a great flood.
100%, and as recently as 5 years ago, that all is not even debate anymore. It was proven every single culture has a flood mythos in it. Everyone, from Japan to around Native Americans, the whole planet, right? And then and then they found petrified clams on the top of Mount Everest. Hello, right? Yeah. Right? How'd that get there? But yeah, so welcome to the glory years, man, and be glad you missed out on. You're still going to get some hate though, but be glad you missed out on that type of stuff. All right, that's a great topic. So yeah, awesome. All right, so got more question for you. All right, got a question because we were texting earlier in here, right? Another one I'm gonna throw out, right? So we were talking about we were deciding, hey, let's talk about cryptids, let's talk about UFOs, let's talk about aliens. Then Ariel was like, you know what, let's talk about them all. And I'm like, you know what, man, let's talk about them all. Let's mix them together, right? So our second half of the podcast, I want to get you guys' opinion on what you think Bigfoot is. Is it a cryptid? Is it an interdimensional? There's an interdimensional theory and there's the extraterrestrial theory. So give me what you guys feel on what you feel they are.
I'm going to go with interdimensional, but I don't know. Right. That's just a wild guess because I'm feeling like I hear people talk about like the corporeal aspect of them, but also the shadow aspect of these types of beings, right? So I don't know.
Right.
I go back and forth on this because there's definitely a case to be made for interdimensional. And the UFO Bigfoot connection is actually kind of fascinating because there are a lot of people who have UFO sightings or Bigfoot sightings, and they're kind of all happening at once. I listened to a really interesting story one time. I think it happened to some people in maybe 70s or 80s, I'm not sure, but some boys saw a UFO like on their farmland or something like that. And then, off to the side, they saw like several like Bigfoots like walking towards them.
Uh-oh, did she freeze?
But the thing is, I don't think they're occupants. I really don't think that they're occupants. I think something about the UFO encounter or like the energy, I think maybe draws them from wherever they are. Does that make sense?
No, totally.
So whether they're interdimensional and it kind of draws them into our dimension, or if they are, maybe they have evolved alongside of us and, they're just really good at hiding, or they're underground, or, caves that we can't detect or something like that. I think that there's something about the UFO energy that somehow like draws them out, maybe like bait. I don't know. That's my super novice, like working theory.
I love it.
That's a good theory though. But I got receipts for you guys though. I do it. So they're both, and I'll tell you why. And so,
yes, tell us.
I'll tell you why. So one of the podcasts we did on here was about the Patty Gilman film that was taken out in California, and it was one of the very first Bigfoot things, and so that's why somebody did these serious researchers. There's 11 different types of Bigfoots, right? I didn't know this, right? 11 different ones, and the first one is referred to as a Patty. If you ever hear a Patty, that's a type 1, and they're referring to the Patty Gilman film. But when you get out there, in California and Washington, along that Western Canadian border, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they have files of UFOs that they refer to in their files as Bigfoot ships. Like they really do. So have you guys come across the Missing 411 series on YouTube?
Yes.
He talks about that, right? So like. But then when you keep moving out I guess, west from that direction, you get to Alaska. That's when you run into the phasers, the ones that you were talking about, that just, they're there and then they phase out and they track them and their tracks are gone. And people have came forward saying that they've been sitting in their campsites and they see these balls of light start floating towards them, and then boom, there's a Bigfoot standing in front of them, right?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's the one we heard the other day too. Yeah, we just heard that story.
And then
that's what I'm talking about. That's the one those are the ones I'm most familiar with, is those kinds of accounts.
Yeah, and so then there was also this lady who said that one was on her property and she leveled a shotgun at it and pulled the trigger and it blinked and was there. Like it phased in and out so fast that she was like, I didn't know what to do after she took a shot at it, right? And then our last podcast was about this. In Canada, they're Native Americans. They refer to as First Nation tribe. In 1871, this 17-year-old girl named Seraphine Long was abducted by a Bigfoot who looked more man than Bigfoot, right? And he was 7 feet tall, muscular, kept her for a year, was very kind to her, got her pregnant. I mean, if you could say abducting her is being kind, right? Got her pregnant, went back, she had the baby. Her brother ended the baby, and she grew up telling this story. And she told one of the researchers there, J.W. Brown was his name. She told him the story, and he chronicled it all. And it turns out that is not an uncommon occurrence at all. And they lived inside of mountains. And the First Nations people said you'll never find. They hibernate during the winter. They said, so that's why you never see them. I said in their enclosures are so well made that.
Right.
Unless they open them up, you just think it's a big, you just don't even know it, right? And to back up your theory too, another theory is that a lot of portals have been sighted right before these type of Bigfoot encounters, which leads people to postulate that different types of alien races use these different types of scouts because they're built, if you think about it. And also the Book of Enoch talks about this guy, or he's in the regular history, but you're King Gilgamesh of Mesopotamia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his best friend was a Bigfoot named Enkidu, and it's written in there like he had a 10-foot tall hairy man that was with him as well, right? And that's also too, and Gilgamesh was in the Book of Giants, which is a chapter out of the Book of Enoch, talking about, in the Bible says that the Watchers sinned with the animals of the earth, and the the Sumerian cuneiform tablets is the name of the other one, says that they did animal hybrid experiments, right? And one of the things that I'm working on right now is that right in the middle of the Dark Ages, Rome went to war with a race of dog-headed men. Have you ever heard this story? That were in northern England. And that's why they really built Hadrian's Wall. I don't know if you're familiar with Hadrian's Wall or not, but that's why they built that. And so, all of these things that are happening right now is I think they've always been here, right? They've just
been suppressed. I feel like they've been suppressed. The knowledge has been suppressed.
Yeah, they've always been here, right? So when I look at all this stuff, and I talked to other people. And they're all, one of the things they used to hit me with back in the day was, Joe, where are these aliens at? Where are these aliens at, right? They'd always say to me, right? And I've had a theory that I've stuck to for a long, long, long time, right? I think life is everywhere. And I mean,
that's what I think.
Everywhere, right? So you mean to tell me God created us, he created the earth, and he made this massive universe, right? And then he's like, nah, I'm just going to stay with this little dot right here. Like these guys, right? That's where my focus at. Then it's the 99.9 repeating rest of everything out there. Well, what's there? Nothing. They'll have you think it's nothing, right? No, there's life everywhere, right? So I think they've always been here, and I think also too that it is way stranger than we can ever comprehend to sit here talking about. It's in my opinion, right? I just think I just think it's like that. That's my opinion. Yeah. But
Ariel and I talk about that all the time about, really life is around us and we just don't have the perception, I think, to understand, we don't have the sensory perception, the biological tools at this point to perceive everything around us, just like we don't see bacteria, we don't see viruses unless we have a microscope, we don't see other planets unless we have a telescope. When we can develop that technology to see beyond, and maybe that's what's happening. Maybe some of the technology that is, growing is calling these things forth. I don't know. It's, activating.
That's a great point. Yeah. Like these monkeys.
Activating some attention. I mean, I think they show up obviously right around nuclear facilities. They, they show up around the 4th of July. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I think there's certain activities that like the energy, I don't know if it's the energy, from explosions or whatever, maybe they activate them. And I don't know. I just see an increase.
What do you think? What do you think?
I mean, what gets me is what is their agendas here? I guess that's what I'm so curious if they're, do these creatures, these cryptids, these aliens, what is the agenda? And I am a Christian. I believe that, God created us. I believe that he could have created life elsewhere. I think he probably did create life elsewhere. And we know that there are other beings that he created, the watchers, the angels. There's lots of different beings described in the Bible, that in Revelation, there's different beings that are described. So I know that he created other things besides humans. My question is how come he didn't think we needed to know about that? Well, so
I got some more bullet points for you guys, since I've been through the ringer a few times to say everything that you guys just said is true. And if anybody ever challenges on you, do you know why they're here? Is because of you guys, not me. It's you guys, and I'll tell you why. And I have the receipts on that. In the Sumerian tablets, the cuneiform tablets, this guy named Enki was the guy that was supposed to have created us, right? And Adam, in their mythos, Adam was carried for, I think it was 10 months, and he was born. I can't remember the female Anunnaki who carried him, but his brother Enlil got furious that Enki did that, and he said, "You made him too dangerous. He has the potential to be greater than us." And in the Bible it says, "You are wonderfully and fearfully made." There is something about us, and especially our women, for reasons I haven't been able to connect the dots. Because it's not just one, you don't just hear a story like, oh, it's always the grays. No, you got these things that look like grasshoppers, you got these lizard guys, you got these tall whites, you got like, these shadow things or whatever. They all want something of us, right? And every time they take us up, people come back and say, what were they doing? How they stuck a needle in me. They took something out of me. They took something in me. Whatever. Yeah. We have something they don't. And they want it, and it also scares them to death. And I'll tell you why it scares them to death, because the theory is that if they had the technology to get here from vast, why don't they just dominate us and take us over, right? Why not just take us over and just farm us? Because of what you just said. These things bow down to Jesus. And if you need some proof, go research some of these abductees who say that they got their abductions to stop by screaming Jesus. And watch these things back up, right? Watch them stop. So, the creator of everything, Jesus considered the Word, spoke everything into it. There's power in his name. And so whatever we have to answer to, they have to answer to. They're not supposed to be here. They're not supposed to be messing with us. And I'm telling you what, even the Watchers, when they came down, their leader was this guy named Sam Jazia. And he was like, hey, I'm not going down there alone. We either all go, because I'm not going to be responsible for when God shows up, right? And
oh yeah, didn't they made like an oath or like an agreement with each other, didn't they? So that he was like basically like, we're all going to take the fall if we take the fall.
And when the Father shows back up, I'm not going down alone. They actually landed on a Mount Hermon. Here's a little fun fact for you: Mount Hermon, inside of Israel, and you can't climb to the top of Mount Hermon. When you get about 1,000 feet towards the top, there's a permanent UN military base there, manned by Germans.
Hmm.
And they took that rock, and that rock, they branded their signs in that rock. That's in the basement of a museum in London that no one's allowed to see, right? And you can't get to the top where these angels came down, right? So again, lies upon lies upon lies. But yes, there's something here that they want. I don't know what it is, right? But there's something here that they want, and if they could just come down here and say round them all up, they would, but they can't. And it's not just one race either. There's like none of them can. We're not being ruled by, maybe we are, like the reptilians are in Congress. I don't know, right? But we're not in little camps or nothing like that, right? Where they're overlording us. And so that right there is the crux of this. I'm the same way as you are, Ariel. I'm like, what do they do during the day? Like, they watch TV? Like, this kind of questions I ask myself, right? Like, what do they do? You know what I mean, right? So I don't know. What do you think? Like, what are these guys doing?
Watching soap operas, right?
Yeah, like, do they like the same? I mean, like, and funny, like Arizona, right? That's supposed to be where they have a lot of these DUMBs, these military underground bases. Have you heard about these things?
Yeah,
I've heard about them in New Mexico.
Yeah, and so also in Arizona too, and like I think Nevada, somewhere else, pretty much out there. But that supposedly was because of this race of aliens called the Tall Whites. I don't know if you ever heard about have you heard about the Tall Whites?
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be
that's the race that Eisenhower supposedly made a deal with, right?
Yeah, and he landed where Area 51 is supposedly at today, and that's where they struck the deal. And that's where they built these bases at underground. And so the Tall Whites, they're the Tic Tac guys. When you see the Tic Tacs, those are the Tall Whites, right? And that's because it's going to come out real soon that Lockheed Martin actually built those. The Whites are piloting them, but we built those, right? But they gave us what we needed, and we built it for them, right? And again, I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, what are y'all doing, right? Like, what's going on, right? So
yeah,
that's the thing that I get into, and that leads me, and I'm so over literal sometimes. I'm just like, okay, when like the thing with the UFO jellyfish, I'm like, where are you going?
Yeah. Take it back to the basics. Like, what's the practical point of all of it?
Yeah,
I'm not sure I agree completely with like the intent of them. I don't, just myself, I just don't know. I mean, I have heard clearly what you're saying about like, obviously they're interested in women. But I mean, to me, it's just, we're an obvious incubator. So if there is interest in, creating a hybrid race, or even just researching or investigating, like, to me, that's who you would look at, because they're able to reproduce. You can see how things develop, and I would just imagine if there's any kind of studies or research going on. So maybe I'm taking it more from like that level of like, could there be certainly less of a nefarious intent? Potentially, could it be like us, when we go and round up rats, and I hate to say that because people don't like to admit that, well, they're not conscious beings or whatever, but what if there is something that they, their intelligence is at a level they can't explain to us what they're doing or how they're behaving, the same way we can't explain to a rat, or we can't explain to our children, hey, when you're 1 year old or when you're born, we're actually going to cut into your penis and do all these things to you. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it, because those are things that we could never explain to a child or an infant, right? And it may cause pain in their life, it may cause harm, but they don't know that we're making decisions for their long-term good. And so sometimes I just take that perspective. Could there be some other activity going on that we're just not able to understand quite yet? And it may not necessarily be all bad, I'm sure it causes harm and trauma. Obviously, if you take a child and you take them to the dentist and rip their teeth out, they're traumatized, even though you consented to it, and even though they probably didn't consent. I know I didn't consent to my dental work when I was a kid. But it was very traumatic,
And for the record, Chris, that's the first time that the male anatomy's actually been properly produced. My other guys, they use many different words. Penis is fine. Oh. Trust me. Trust me. It's very, very proper. So yeah, it's very proper.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad I used the appropriate word.
Joseph, are you aware of the work of Timothy Alvarino?
I am not. I could, but I probably might not know his to credit him for that.
Definitely check his YouTube channel and his book out. He basically teaches exactly what you were talking about before. That's his theory and that's his argument. He's a Christian ufologist. Mm-hmm. If he believes that they are creating a hybrid race mm-hmm. because they want to. They want to take over Earth, but because God gave Earth to humans, yes, they can't take it from us by force because it's our birthright. And so basically for them to be able to take over the Earth, they have to create a hybrid race that's just human enough so that they can inherit it as a birthright. And so that's his whole argument of what's going on and why. So you definitely check out Timothy Alvarino's book and YouTube channel. You will love his stuff.
Yeah, let me write that down.
I didn't realize that was his theory.
It won't work. Really, that won't work for them. God's got their number, man. But that's actually a good thing. I did some research on the black-eyed kids phenomenon. You ever heard about the black-eyed kids before? They're terrifying, mm-mm. right? And so people don't know what to make them, if they're supernatural or if they're some type of, alien. To me, the videos that they look, and the research has been on, they look like failed Gray's experiments. They have the pitch black eyes of gray aliens, and they look like these kids, right? But again, there's also there's also another spiritual aspect that's involved in it. I don't really dig into it much because it terrifies me, right? Like I don't like it's not my thing, right? So I'll leave the demons over there. You know what I'm saying? Like I stay in this lane over here, right? But no, that's actually
that's interesting. Would that fall in line with like dominion theology though? Like because possible. The Earth was granted dominion to humans,
for sure.
You're saying? So they have to really like hold to that. Prescribe that to that first, and then it goes from there.
Yeah, so
basically the idea that they're trying to get the Earth on illegality. Yeah, they're trying to take
a loophole through a loophole.
Through a loophole, basically, because God granted dominion of the Earth to humans. Only humans will be permitted to rule it, and that's why the Watchers came down. That's why the Watchers did what they did, because the Watchers. This is what he says. The Watchers wanted to take over Earth, but they had to come down and breed with human women so that they could produce a race that was part human enough to be able to
have the birthright,
be granted dominion. Yeah.
And so and no, that's actually a very good.
I have so many debates in my head though.
I know. You can read it. You can read his book because I'm sure he could explain it way better. He has pioneered this theory.
No, it's interesting.
Fascinating, great read. Yeah, but I mean, I obviously can't defend it the way he could, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
No, I'm just like in my head, it's raising a bunch of questions for me as far as like the theology that carries that through. Like, what about the birthright of the Israelites? I mean, so in the same way that Christians were grafted in to the birthright, I mean, that's what the Christians claim, right? So it's almost like this parallel, which I know they wouldn't want to compare that to it, but
so the best way to go about that dominion theory on that is to remove all theology out, and it's based in the principle that God gave the earth to Adam, the descendants of Adam. And so the theory so in the theory on that, there is no Buddhist, there is no anything, right? So it was the descendants of Adam, right? But one of the main, so you're actually onto something, Chris. One of the main I wouldn't call it a flaw. It's a theory. One of the main theories that people that talk about it is that Jesus throws a monkey wrench into that, right? So so what he had is that God tried to so just follow me out on this, right? So the descendants of Adam, when you go through, and then the flood, and then Noah and Seth and all those guys, they repopulate, right? And then somehow not all of the corruption was gone. And when he says corruption, they're talking about, the Nephilim blood or whatever. So God picked the Jews not because they were so great, it's because they just weren't as bad as everybody else, because everybody was terrible, right? But these were were the least terrible. And literally, when you read the Exodus, Moses had them out of there for like 2 days. Like, I want to go back. They were like, "Why'd you take us out of here?" Right? And then the gold calf and all this stuff, right? So, but the theory is on that. But what the other theory is on that is that the Watchers' offspring, the Nephilim, are not allowed in heaven. God said there will be no Nephilim in heaven. So their souls are trapped here to torment, right? So they think that by creating these hybrids, and that's where you get the people lead off saying that they're not aliens, they're demons. So that's where you get the split off on that. And again, it's important that I put an asterisk down here. Nobody knows, right? It's like physicists, like we only know 4%, like 96%, we're just like speculating, postulating. It's heck of fun to do, right? So that's where it comes into that they want to come into the to what Ariel was saying about how they need to hijack our bloodline, right? And in order to physically they can't mate with us, right? They can't mate with our species, right? So that's why they're trying to make these hybrids to come down. That's why the interest is within these women to come and do it. But at the end, I hate to tell people, but like if you read the last chapter of the book, it doesn't end well for you guys, right? Like I said, like matter of fact, you don't even have to read it. Just go to like the very back and start there, right? And so that's how it goes down. But no, that's actually a very good point. I'm going to read his book. I'm going to definitely do some research on that and go and look on it as well. But yeah, it's good stuff. But what do you guys think, Chris? I think it's a fascinating topic, and I definitely, Ariel knows I've come from a very conservative Christian background, but I've pretty much deconstructed most of my faith. And I say that, I'm on a journey right now. To me, this whole thing has really opened up, like it's actually reinvested my curiosity into the topic and into even faith and spirituality in a whole new way. Right.
So learning about these theories is really fascinating. It just gets my mind going, because it takes me back.
Yeah, you don't ever have to apologize for that. Like, I'm a Christian as well. Two things can be true at the same time, right? So
yeah.
And when me and Jay and the other guys, when we come on here so Jay's got his own theories, I got my own theories. We just refer to them as not us's, right? So we're here. We're us three are here, and those guys over there, Dogman, Bigfoots, they're not us's, right? So they're in that big, broad not us's category. But you can't say that those not us's don't exist, because they do. So we can't debate that anymore. But no, and so going on were you a pew jumping Christian, or were you a burning hellfire? I grew up in the South, man, so we get scared into heaven.
I'm sorry, my dogs. I was really conservative. I was, a Sunday school teacher, a preschool leader. I was a, pastor's wife, youth pastor, did all the things. But we were pretty much the liberal people in town. So we were like, we were the heretics in town. We were like conservative for like my sake, but we were very liberal for the church's sake.
Right.
And so what you said at the very beginning, I always feel like I've never fit in.
Yeah.
I'm just one of those people that, like, growing up, like I was just the weird kid. Mm-hmm. And in the church, I was the weird one with weird eccentric thoughts, and I didn't always agree with authority and what people told me. And in the end, it came down to love for me. And I didn't feel that in some settings, people were receiving the love they deserved. And so that kind of made me question, like, what I was doing in those settings. But yeah, so that's kind of where I've landed, like, as far as that goes.
Anybody that I've met that's in this as deep as we are, because we're obviously fairly invested, we're all weird. I mean, like in like a cool way, you know what I'm saying? Like we all got like when I was growing up, I never, like, I wouldn't speak. They took me to get me tested, and like I just wouldn't talk, right? I just wouldn't speak, right? Until I was like, now I could talk, and like when I was forced to speak, I would speak, but like I just wouldn't speak, right? And I used to have these great big giant wars with clothespins. I would set clothespins up like I was some kind of army, like this clothespins, right? Like army general, right? So yeah,
that's cool.
Welcome to the Weird Club, man. You're in the right place. Yeah. We got T-shirts and everything.
Yeah, I definitely embrace it, and especially when you get older, you realize, oh, you should have embraced it a long time ago.
Yeah, I did. I've been letting my freak flag wave for like a long. I've been having this alien argument for a long time. What about you, Ariel? What about you, weirdo? Chime in.
I know.
She doesn't have time to be weird anymore. She's a mom.
Oh, is that what it is?
I know, right? I know. I'm a Christian, but I'm kind of turned off to the church, just the institution of the church. I've just seen so much corruption and abuse of power. I have a really good friend who is in the domestic violence sphere, and just the rates at which some of these pastors excuse this stuff and defend, the men and the abusers, it just kind of all turned me off to the church as an institution. But yeah, I'm definitely strong in my faith otherwise. And I'm so curious to study, like you, these topics coming from a Christian perspective. And that's part of why I've grown so much on Twitter, is I get a lot of DMs and a lot of questions just going, okay, like, I see you're a Christian, Ariel, like, how do you approach this? How does this fit within the context of your faith? And, I'm like, well, I'm still figuring it out, because, there's a lot of connected topics and there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey. But I'll definitely, after the show is over, I'll have to send you some people to follow, and other books and people that are in this sphere that you would probably love to check out.
Yeah, for sure. And the same way too, just to show you what works for me, right, is I don't care. I blaze. Yeah. I blaze. I've read the Bible. I read it every day, right? And then I have, like I said, so after the Exodus, I forget. I think the guys, God let Jacob finally go across, and they came to the city of Jericho. They were attacking Jericho, and he comes, and Jesus shows up to tell them, hey, look, we're gonna knock these walls down. And the guy's like, oh my Lord, and he's like, hey, take your shoes off. And I thought to myself, imagine meeting God, and that's the first thing he says, like, hey, yeah, take your shoes off. So that's the type of stuff that comes in my head. So like, if you can't read the scripture, and it's like, what are they talking about? What does that even mean, right? Like, what does that even, why does it even do that? And another weird thing too is that when God had enough of Israel, and he sent Nebuchadnezzar down from, I think it was Babylon, Baghdad. He literally says, I sent my son Nebuchadnezzar down to punish the Israelites. And I'm like, your son? Like, I thought these were your like so there's just stuff in there that like, and you have
crazy stuff. Yeah.
And if you can't question it, right? Then you'll, in my opinion, if you can't question it, you can't fully ever understand it, right? And so to think, right. And so I totally get what you're doing. And even Jesus said, like, when he's attacking the Pharisees and the Sadducees, is like, you guys, religion's not the answer. I'm the answer. And like, that's right. And that's why, and the thing too, like, I get into some pretty good debates, only because it's relevant on this side right here, is that the Roman Empire never went away. It just morphed into the Roman Catholic Church. That's all it morphed into, right? Yeah. And Caesar became the Pope, right? Jesus wasn't Catholic. I don't know why people like he wasn't like it didn't go down like that, right? And so you have to ask that question. But like you said, and another thing too that I have a problem with is I don't like mega churches. I don't like these pastors who think they're rock stars and they're driving Bentleys and like they have these $50 million mansions, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what are you talking about? And then I saw a statistic the other day that blew my mind. Right? I'm not a church hater, but like it just blew my mind. The amount of billions that are donated to churches each year are enough to wipe poverty out of America forever. Yeah. Forever.
And right? Tax free. Don't forget.
It's tax free, right? So yeah,
they function as businesses, and they get away with it. And I understand why, but it's like abused. It's just another abused system because they still talk about their political beliefs from the altar.
Yeah, man. They get in the pulpits, they get going on that. But yeah, man. So now when your Christian beliefs, when you're dealing with, and I get it a lot too, because we also do cryptids here, right? And I also do other stuff. I get it from there as well. It's like, that's demons. And I'm like, no, it's not. The government made that. That's a half man dog, right? And like, what are you talking about, Joe? And I'm like, so I did a video. It's on my Instagram about how in 2021 they introduced a bill to ban animal-human hybrids, to ban it, right? And the Department of Homeland Security said, They cut it out. They said no.
They needed it.
It's legal. You can make animal-human hybrids in America. It's legal. And so this guy, I've contacted his wife. I've managed to track her down. The Joe Barger story is one of the podcasts. It's called The Man Who Killed a Dog Man. Do you ever hear about this story, Brooke?
When you suggested it to me, I just listened to it last night, and I listened to him tell his own story on
Chris,
a podcast.
Check it out.
And oh my goodness, like that.
Yeah.
If that's real, oh my word.
And they sweated him down. According to him, the Department of Homeland Security threatened his life. You killed one of our assets, right? So some of this stuff. So a really good theory. They're not demons. That's not another thing too. I with the UFO stuff. Some of the stuff you see, that's us, right? Some of these things you see flying around, that's us, right? You just don't know it's us, right? But that's us, right? Those Tic Tacs, those aren't us driving them, but we built them. But other stuff is not us. They're not demons, right? We created them. And then somebody hit me up on a DM yesterday, and he said, you need to go research this. Something's in those cave systems, and we're breeding these things to go in them cave systems to fight whatever's in those cave systems. So whatever's in there, we're sending them in there, right? And so that's why they got mad at Joe, because Joe shot the dog man and killed it, but the thing was trying to get in his truck. You know what I'm saying? It was like coming at him, right? I would have shot it too, right? And it was like 10 feet tall. So when you come across, when I come across other Christians, and Christians can be just as bad as non-believers when with their vitriol, when they try to come at you, right? Like, oh my God.
Yep.
You're this, that, and the other. Yes, Ariel shaking her head, so she actually, you probably know it. They can be just as bad.
Yeah.
But no, with me, this is what I believe, and I hit them with facts, right? They love these facts, right? You ever heard of the theory, the physicist, the theoretical physicist, the Schrodinger, about the Schrodinger's cat? You ever heard that theory before?
Yeah.
So when I tell people that, if you believe that nonsense, how do I know if the cat's alive or dead in the box till you open it? Well, how do you know I'm cooking in the kitchen unless you open the door and I'm in the kitchen, right? How do you know what's in those caves? I couldn't tell you what went on today in Arizona or Nebraska, right? Like, or I definitely can't tell you what went on in some cave in the Appalachians right now, where it takes you 4 hours to hike there, right?
Exactly.
So we don't know, and they don't know, right? And when you introduce just the smallest little bit of, could this guy be right? It totally scrambles their brains, man. And they got to accept theories to go into it. But no, you guys just keep on keeping on, man. Y'all are killing it, man. You got everything you need to be successful too, man. You really do. You do.
Oh, thank you so much.
One thing that I really encourage people is just to look into it for themselves, because, and this is just a great example of like the Joe Barger story, is if you just go and read an article about it, okay? And you just skim the article and you're going to kind of go, oh, that sounds really fantastical. But then if you go and listen to him tell his own account of the story, and you listen to the level of detail and his emotion and his face, and you actually give it a chance from the source itself, that is going to make you stop and think. And so I just would encourage everyone to do your own research and to give it a chance and to just kind of seek it out, because once you start seeking it out and giving it a chance, it's kind of undeniable.
Yeah. And so another thing too, that you probably guys have probably experienced this too, in my experience in life, why I believe Joe Barger. And this is a little test I use when I hear people. There's people that are faking it. Okay, we're not denying that. So of course, some people are seeking attention and their lives are mundane and they're just looking to fit in. But anybody that's ever been in some real trauma, right? Some real, that's earth shattering, change your whole perspective on life. They always remember the dumbest detail, right? And so when you hear somebody tell a story and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I looked up, there was a gray alien there and he was looking at me, but then I just couldn't notice that my TV was playing the State Farm commercial at the same time, and I was like, there was a contrast of the lights, like that one little specificity that you would not like. What you remember that, right? I'd be panicking, right? And so and another thing too, that's why I believe that Seraphin. That's why I believe Seraphin Long when she was telling her story about how she got abducted, because she said that this 7 foot tall, that she referred to him as a wild man, right? And he grabbed her. And he threw her over her shoulder and he started running. And as he was running, she said, I was scared, but I couldn't help but notice how his breathing was fine. He wasn't even winded.
Yeah, no.
And so I thought to myself, if you need I don't think I'm ever going to get picked up by a 7 foot wild man, but if you two ever got picked up by a 7 foot Yeti, thrown over your shoulder, running into the woods, are you going to say wow, this guy's really in good shape? Like he's not even breaking a wind here when he's running, right? I thought to myself we
might be like, honey, how come you didn't carry me that easy?
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, so exactly, right? So I just thought to myself man, that is such a specific. Yeah. And Joe Barger drops 3 or 4 things in there. He's like that, and I was like, yo, man, he was there, right? And I totally believe him, right? I do. So.
That's funny. Yeah. I remember what potato chips I was eating on the 4th of July, right, with my mouth full when I was filming it. I remember specifically that detail.
Yeah, right.
And so a potato chip.
Yeah, right. And so and when you hear people tell stories, right, and another thing too, when I started this channel, I made because of what I had to deal with for so long, and just because to be a nice person, it's no matter who I talk to or what. It's gonna be judgment free. I'm not gonna say hey man, that's that's no way that happened. Yeah. I'm like, okay, sure. I'm sorry that happened to you. That's his thing.
Right, yeah.
But you guys as researchers too, when you look at people and when they start having glaring gaps, right? And then you're like, all right, man, come on, man. That's a pretty big like a hole. It's I was sitting in my room, I looked up and he was at the foot of my bed. Okay, right? What time was it? What was it? That's the type of question they'll ask you. What did it look like? What did it look like? Oh, and they'll describe a gray. Oh, he was tall and gray, right? And okay. You start thinking to myself man, that's awful vanilla, man. That's awful this. That's awful that. Sleep paralysis is another thing too, right? If you ever had an experience with that terrifying moment, sleep paralysis, right? Anybody that's ever been through sleep paralysis, you know what that stuff is like, right? And so sleep paralysis, my teeth were grinding, I was freezing, I couldn't move, and he was there. He was over my bed, right? I was there, right? And you very rarely hear anybody say that I sat up and there was something at the end of my bed and I had full range of motion and I was looking around for the light. That doesn't happen like that. Normally you're you can't move. They nuke you, right? And you can't move. And that's it. But anyways, I'm keeping you guys here way too long. I'm sorry. So I'm going to wrap this up here. So,
yeah, this has been so great. And I just want to, thank you so much for having us. This has been so great. I love you. I love your personality. I love what you're doing here. And just a shout out to other women. We are truly underrepresented in this community, in these fields. So please keep inviting women on your show and, showcasing that we have a voice too. And I commend you for reaching out to us and reaching out to, the other women that you have, because a lot of men who have podcasts just they never invite other women on. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I'm glad to hear it. All the guys keep telling me no. I'm joking. No, I'm joking. No, that's great to have you. It's great to. I'm glad you guys. Thanks for coming on. I probably kept you here a little bit late, but like, so yeah, I'm so happy that you guys are here. I'm gonna have you back, right? So.
Yeah, definitely. We can show
so much fun.
We have you on our show as well. We would love to have you join us.
Anytime if I can return the favor. Before we go, tell everybody where they can find you. I'm gonna put.
Yeah, go ahead.
During the podcast, I'm gonna have your stuff up here as well, man.
Yeah. You can just find me mostly on Twitter. Well, you can find the podcast on the. I always get this wrong because we had to use it. It's the Elephant in the Room 411, I believe. But it's the Elephant in the Room podcast. And you can find us on Twitter. I'm under at Chris Divine, and it's KRYSDEVINE, or Awake While Sleeping. You can find me under that name as well. Ariel.
And then, yeah, I'm mostly over on Twitter as well. My username is AES Skywatcher, and the name is Ariel Elizabeth. That is my first and middle name. I do not put my last name out there to avoid stalkers.
Stalkers. Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie. When I first
you don't put your address like I did the other day.
Oh gosh.
I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw your name, I'm like, AES Skywalker. I'm like, was she Skywalker? Like, Skywatcher. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I think the same thing.
Oh, you guys are great. So, hey, if you stuck around this long, nerds, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. Go out and give these lovely ladies a follow on their YouTube channel, on their Instagram. They're already dominating Twitter. They're gonna make. I'm not gonna lie. I got 35 followers on Twitter, right? On X, right? These girls, we're
gonna help you grow that.
They got more.
Yeah.
They got a lot more.
Come follow UFO Twitter.
So come follow them on Twitter.
Follow UFO Twitter, and yeah, we'll boost you on there.
Actually, so go give you guys a follow. Look at the channel. The podcast is great. I caught the full episode last night. I had to refrain. I didn't want to dominate the text over there. But you guys are great. Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much.
See you next time. We're out, losers.
Cheers.
Boom.
Subscribe now and turn on the notifications to join us on this extraordinary journey into the unknown.